Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to our fourth session, which is very close to my heart, Communal Loss, the Erosion of Third Spaces in Modern South Asia. Why is it close to my heart? It's where my practice begins. It's loss of a lot of public spaces, a lot of conversation, and a lot of advocacy. This project is a project of a discussion, a debate, a reflection to all these years of what we as architects believe in and think of as a form of advocacy in the city. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce Plus 921 Heritage Talks 2025 third webinar. I am Marvi Mazhar, architect based in Karachi, developed this project, Plus 921 Heritage Talks, as a form of response to ongoing deterioration and decay in urban Karachi, where conversation around repair and maintenance is hugely missing. Pakistan Chowk Community Centre is an organization which has worked very hard since 2016 to be part of a very large network of idea, and also to think about built environment, safeguarding public spaces, and establishing a strong stance towards preservation. Pakistan Chowk Community Centre strives to provide a space for community engagement, advancement of arts and culture, and democratic and literary discourse in Karachi, especially focusing on urban infrastructure and preservation discourse. Plus 921 Heritage Talk is a project of Pakistan Chowk Community Centre, PCC, conceptualized and developed by myself in 2023, where every year PCC hosts discussions and webinars dedicated to the politics of heritage and preservation in South Asia. This webinar is later viewed by students, researchers, and urban thinkers on YouTube. And we encourage, and we've gotten also a feedback from students that how this has helped them formulate case studies and research outlines through these extensive form of knowledge. So today that you are here, you're sharing your practice, helps a lot of larger network of practitioners and thinkers. So this is almost forming into a community. So thank you again for taking our time and being part of this. Plus 921 Heritage Talk is an innovative South Asian perspective which unveils radical discussion through yearly student-led curated series on an online platform bringing different practices together. PCC works very hard to bring academics, bloggers, independent researchers, artists, architects, urban planners, policymakers, anthropologists, journalists, and even fiction writers to come together to think about development, infrastructure, and ecology. What is exciting is the process. Year-round, we stalk everyone on different social media pages, and we make a list. That internal list is sometimes scribbled on a piece of paper or on our iPhone notes or somewhere on the fridge. Oh, we saw this person, let me write down their names. And then we collect that data, and then we all come together as a form of a team in summers to share that list and say, listen, let's come together and look at this body of work. Sometimes it gets so difficult to downsize because we know that the attention span is, even listening to 4 speakers can get so dense and intense and exciting that you have to let go of those 3 other exciting speakers. So in our hearts, we would love to have 10 speakers per panel, but just imagine the energy that would go in. And I think we all want to snap out of those COVID years where Zoom became like an internal thing. But at the same time, it is also very exciting to have the South Asian community coming together and listening to each other, of looking at same issues, same problems, but from a different perspective. And it's also a moment of learning of how co-thinking takes place and co-learning takes place. So before any further ado, I now introduce PCC's this year's team, who's worked absolutely really hard to put this project together. And you must have noticed that through these intense emails that you were getting through. So my Plus 2921's Heritage Talks lead curators this year are Syed Samil and Sana Waheed. Documentation and coordination has been Shaheen Numan, who is lovingly known as Auntie Shaheen, who put a lot of hard work in carrying the Heritage Walk Karachi project for students, researchers, and visitors every year through this Heritage Walk project, which you all must be familiar with. She's also our very own whistleblower from field, so we need that kind of a person from grassroots. And then we cannot begin without acknowledging this year's dynamic team who worked extremely hard on various sections like research, creativity, social media, communication strategy, and of course, our artwork that you must have noticed. We pay a lot of attention to how our poster is going to look like and how our music is going to work out. So we put a lot of attention there. So let me call out that team, and I'm sure you would love to meet them and see them today on screen. So Syed Samil, of course, Karachi University, Sana Waheed, Indus Valley School of Art and Architecture, Asad Zafar, one of our youngest team members, Karachi Grammar School, Ishal Hassan Khan, BNU, Faiz Siddiqui, Karachi Grammar School, again, a younger team member, Seham Dadaboy, National College of Arts, and two others who worked for a period of time, Asadullah Rajpur and Kissa Ali Jafri. Before I start the session, just a quick SOP. I request the audience who have just checked in right now into our session, please keep your mic on mute. If you have something interesting to share, chat box is open. You can even leave a question if you want. And if you think some of the speakers resonate with the work that you must have come across, please leave some case studies for us to review and share. Let's develop a community around it, even if it's only for 2 hours. When speakers finish presenting, we will open the space for audience to interact and share observations. Usually speakers share work between 15 to 20 minutes. We will give you a little bit of a signal on the 15th minute, but go on for 20 minutes as a solid time that we give you to share your work. Session is recorded and will be uploaded on PCC YouTube channel. So if you from the audience have missed out our last 3 sessions, please log on to our YouTube channel, which is the Pakistan Chowk Community Centre, and don't have to like and subscribe, but please watch those videos. We are not here for the hits, but we are here for you to learn from us. I now welcome our moderator to open our exciting session 4, Communal Loss, the Erosion of Third Spaces in Modern South Asia. Our one more session is left, which is happening next week, and I hope to see you all as a goodbye to our webinar this year. On behalf of PCC, the advisors, and the community that I have developed in the last 10 years, I welcome all the speakers who generously have carved out time in different time zones, our audience who believe in our work, and I hope we continue such discussions in future. I thank all our speakers on today's session. It means a lot for you to take our time and share your practice, and we really appreciate it from bottom of our hearts. Thank you. Over to you, Sana.
Thank you, Marvi. Hello, everyone. My name is Sana Waheed, and I'm the moderator for today's session. We really appreciate you being here. I will now introduce the brief for today's session on the topic Communal Loss, the Erosion of Third Spaces in Modern South Asia. Communal spaces are a ground for social and economic life to grow. They can be referred to as the gardens and verandas of an urban space. They function as third spaces for the community, a space not associated with work or home. However, over time, the hyper-urbanization within South Asian cities has led to the disappearance of neighborhood communal spaces and architectural features such as thallas, chaurahas, and baithaks. These informal meeting spaces were a ground for exchange and nurturing of ideas, poetry, and music. Moreover, they proved to be a platform for cross-pollination between the older and younger generations. In post-colonial South Asian cities, the increasing privatization and neglect of public infrastructure within the city has left public spaces commercialized, such as malls, food streets, or dhabas, to be the only form of third spaces to exist within the city. However, they are spatially appropriated by men, making it harder for women to access them. Women have to negotiate their way through public spaces by taking different routes or using protective measures. Hence, in order to make public spaces gender inclusive, they are either commercialized or privatized. Moreover, the issue of encroachments and street hawkers aggravates the situation further, thus affecting the community's culture, civic life, and walkability within the area. In this session, we aim to reassess the need for communal spaces in South Asian culture as an essential asset to the social, cultural, and physical well being of the community. To understand how public spaces can be made accessible for women without privatizing them, as commercialization has led to widening of the class gap, do external factors such as policies, laws, and norms play an important role in the erosion of communal spaces within South Asian cities? To delve into today's discussion, we are joined by a distinguished panel of speakers. We warmly welcome Suhailey Farzana, Zahra, Hirji, and Marium Naveed. Thank you all for taking out the time to be here with us today. It's truly an honor to have you here. Unfortunately, one of the speakers on the panel, Shilpa Ranade, couldn't be here with us today due to unforeseen circumstances. Without further ado, I would now like to welcome our first speaker, Suhailey Farzana. She is a community architect with a deep interest in exploring the co creation process with people, focusing on empowerment through collaboration. She is the co founder of Co Creation Architects and the platform of community action and architecture. So, Haley is actively involved in the Asian Coalition for Housing Rights and the Community Architects Network. She facilitates workshops that bring together professionals and community members, fostering mutual learning and understanding. Suhaili is a joint recipient of Al Khan Award for Architecture in 2022 and the UIA Award 2030 for her work on urban river space in Janaidah, Bangladesh. Recently, she was featured in the RIBA Royal Institute of British Architects publication, 100 Women Architects in Practice, highlighting her contributions to the field. Welcome to the conference, Suhaili. It's great to have you here with us today. Over to you.
Thank you, Sana, and thank you, Marvi, for the background why we are here today. And you mentioned an important word, I think, heart. I think this is a powerful entity that actually drives our work and also our life. So I'm very glad to be here, and thank you to the Pakistan Chowk Community Centre. And I'll be very glad to share how and we work and what we do. So let me share my screen. I will actually share the stories behind how we work, and we love to do what we do. So I will share the stories actually of people. So yeah, and let's before I try to share how we work, let me share who we are. So I am not the only team member in my team. So we are a network, and we work like we have a local network which is Co-Creation Architects, and then we have the national network that is FOCA. It's a voluntary platform of architects and also non-architects, anthropologists, and many other people, urban planners as well. And CAN, Community Architects Network. So it's a South Asian regional network. So I'll be explaining a little bit more later on. But I wanted to share this because we are a network and that's how we work. We don't work alone. So we work in a network. So I'll be sharing one work of Junaidah. Junaidah is a secondary town in a southwestern part of Bangladesh. So this is our city, and we have a beautiful river crossing through our city, as you can see on the left image. And we have a unique feature, like our city actually grown on the both side of the river. It's quite unique. So in a day, if we want to go from here to there, we cross lots of bridges within the city. So it's a very interesting thing. And I also want to mention, like we have 63 low-income settlements in our city, which we actually, with the people, we actually pinpoint it so that because they are also the heart of our city, they are giving us service and they're doing creative work. They are empowered. There are empowered women groups and very powerful groups. So I thought these are the two things I should tell you about my city. So this is the city center of Junaidah city, and it's a small town. So people are a bit relaxed. They will always have time to talk with you, and lots of informal spaces like tea stalls under the banyan trees, and here and there lots of spaces. But these are predominantly actually predominantly taken over by the men, and very few urban spaces for the women. So, and people has a process of making their city. People are, for a long time, South Asian cities have been developed very organically. People are the main actors of that. So, people are actually building the cities without the professionals. So once we went back to our hometown in Jhunaida and we placed ourselves there, and we actually migrated from Dhaka to our hometown, and we started working with the low-income settlements of the city to work in to have a better habitat. So we were co-creating and co-designing housing with them. So actually, these are the women groups who gave us the courage to understand the people's power. And so then we thought, okay, the community people are able to, plan their own houses and the community. So it must be the citizens who can plan their cities and the urban places. So what they need, maybe they need a presence of a professional, and the professionals should be useful in the process, in the people's process. So we actually gave us lots of work to ourselves. Like we said, okay, we will try to know what people actually want about the city, and it was a very long workshop, like 7 or 8 days workshop, and we sat with different groups, age and gender segregated. So, and it was also a fun process, of course, not because when architects are involved, it's a fun process, I believe. So we sat with the children. We also sat with the many group. I think it was like 14 to 15 groups, and we tried to know like what is the aspiration of the people. So we sat with children, then teenage girls, teenage boys, low-income settlement women, men, also the elders and the street vendors, sports groups, cycling groups, like lots of other groups. And these groups were organically, one group, when we sat with one group, this group drag another group. Maybe they will be useful. So, we started with that. And gradually, it was like many groups joined in. It was more like a movement in this movement. And together, and with the help of municipality, we actually built a citywide people's network. So this is the proactive team, who actually thought of the how we want to plan for the city. So the aspiration of different group was, few of the aspirations was overlapping, but many were them very unique. The children focused on the green space and the water bodies, and the teenage girls, they focused on safety, good pedestrian way. So it was very different, and then they came up with one common dream. So as the architects, we tried to facilitate the process, and then organize their dreams. And in this process, we are not actually alone. I talked about the CAN network, Community Architects Network, who does similar works in different 19 countries. And so in this process, we did a intense workshop, like 7 day, a big one, and many international friends actually joined, and many of the young professionals of Bangladesh also joined with the citizen of Junaida to plan the cities with them in a bigger scale. And together we could actually understand the aspiration of the citizens. So the image, it's a part of the plan. So you can see like how organic and colorful, beautiful model it has become, just because we could add the layers. Because when people are proactively involved in the process, we get lots of like invaluable layers, which as professionals, or as when we work as consultant as an outsider, we can't really see. But if the professional are within embedded actually in the city, and work with people, we can see lots of other things. So people talked about the ponds. We have lots of ponds, around 300 ponds in our city. They talked about this small ponds to be the informal urban spaces, lots of small spaces for women. And then we have the beautiful river, and they talked about particular one place. It was where the city actually started. So in once it was a very vibrant place, but with time it got the back of the river, and it was not safe at all, and women never actually went there. So that was the spot the citizens actually wanted to work. And so what did the architects do in the process? We actually tried whatever skills we have, we can organize, we can do the visuals, we can help people with the the models and the other things. So so people talked about their dream, and architects and the other professionals, they started drawing, and then the people would correct it. No, 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 I didn't tell like this. It has to be like this. So lots of back and forth, and then we co-created images of their dreams. And at the end of that big workshop, actually people presented it to the city authority. There is a mayor, our ex-mayor, and also the deputy commissioner, and the architects become invisible in the process, because people are proactively actually working in the process, and people has a language to negotiate with the city authority, which architects might not have. We really have to like understand that. And this was about the big collective river states I'm talking about. And so in one low income settlement, they wanted to work on their communal urban space. So we said, okay, let's try. And they actually uh, yeah, so they started working with us with information gathering. I think when we work with people, it's important that we have all the information in their hands so that they also understand this. So we started with the mapping of the community. This is the biggest low-income settlement in Jinaida, Shadbaria, and then yeah. They also work on the data creation. So they did settlement profiling of the 63 low-income settlements of the city. So they have all the information, like what are the needs and what they want to work in the future, and who are the people inside the community. They also did census. So when poor people actually talk with the government, it's important that they have the information, and they also have the savings group. So money and information that makes people powerful. So we had several design workshops with them about the communal river steps, ghats. So ghats or river steps, I think many of the South Asian countries, we have this kind of informal public spaces, like lots of things actually goes on here. But gradually we are losing it because the river is deteriorating. So we did a design workshop predominantly with the women because they use it most, and they came up with different models and different designs all together, and we tried to visualize them with our own skills, and also we try to draw a little bit of plans and sections and how this would look like, and lots of back and forth. Then we showed it to the community and then corrected it. And this is the big river steps of the city. So the upper picture is the aspiration and the dream of the citizen, and the lower picture is like when it is the phase one is implemented. So when people have a common and collective image of their dream, they aspire to achieve that, and they actually pressurize the government to get involved and get funds and get it done. So it's a powerful thing when we have people, and eventually they built it together. And this is the small river state, like the communal states of the low income settlements, and this is the big one. So this space, once that was abandoned and very unsafe for the female, especially women, it became the front side of the city. And this is, by the way, this is the confluence of the river of our city. So this place has a very historical significance as well, also the geographical, because historically it was used to be the trading spot for the city, and also lots of religious festivals were used to take place, and then it got lost. and the citizens actually revived it through their co-creation. And they didn't stop there, so they started, if you can see my cursor, like this is the small communal hut in the lower part, and the big one is here in the confluence. But the citizens, they design like 4 kilometer walkway and the small urban spaces, informal spaces for the city. So yeah, and then so what we actually understood from this work is like the process is more important than the product. As architects, we are always trend, like about the product, but the process is also important. And when we want to make it like very inclusive for the women, they need also to be in the part of the design process and the building process. Otherwise, this cannot be inclusive. And as you know, this process has recognized by the UIA and Aga Khan, and this is essentially for the process, not the product. The product is very simple with the very basic construction material, local masons. There is nothing special in that sense, but the process is more powerful than the end product. So this is what happens when people are proactively involved, in the design phase. So the children would come, the women would come, the students would come, the young youths will come with their bicycles and they will skate there. So yeah, and the children are also appropriating these spaces with art competition or in every occasion. It's like somehow overcrowded, always packed with people, and this has made the space very safe and accessible for everyone. And also there is access for the people with disability, differently able people. And this is the first urban space in Jhunaida where the differently able people could actually go through this with their wheelchair. And this space is so safe that the tutoring also goes on by this space. I'm showing just a little bit of example like how people are appropriating it and using it. When we actually sat together and co-design, we didn't foresee lots of functions that would come up, but it has been used very interestingly. So there is one female teacher who teaches here, and we asked like, why do you teach here? She said it's safe. So yeah, I wanted to share that. And also the communal ghat is overly used by the elders, women, children, and men. So this is a photo of a celebration of our city, the World River Day. So when people actually are in the process, proactively involved, and then they take responsibility. This is what happens, and this process architects need to do with lots of dialogue, also care. I think caring is very important. The local people's wisdom and aspiration, and also collaborating this with the city authority and other networks. And it doesn't stop here. When we work with people, they also build capacity of their own. So these are the models. None of them are architects as well. They are the local people, sometimes community people. They build this model. So when people have the, involved with us in this process, they learn lots of other things which we essentially learn in our academia in the first year and second year. So people are building their capacity as well. They are building the negotiating tool, the models and the information through this process. And women are really learning to do the masonry work. This is one of the craft center women were building in this process. So yeah, so when people are actually involved, this is what happens. So what we understood, if I try to summarize, I think I'm at the end kind of in the presentation. So we need to be present in the city and engage, and we shouldn't be an outsider when we work. We should live in the city. so that we have the multiple identity. We are architects, then we are also I'm also the citizen there. So I know like what are the problems. I also have a good relationship. It's also important. And as you know, in smaller town of South Asia, everyone knows each other and everyone is somehow related. So that is also a very powerful tool. And we also need to organize the invisible communities through collective action. So the people who does not have the power to, who are not visible, who does not have the power to negotiate with the powerful people. And we also need to work with networks. And we believe we should work with people and also the nature. And we simply should believe like let people be the solution. We don't need to be architects. Don't need to take so much on their shoulder. People can actually solve it. We need to trust on them. So as you can see that in the image, like on the left and the right, I think the way we work is the right system, the right image in a very organic system. And we believe this is a more sustainable, more inclusive system. And the most of the organizations works very linearly, like the left one, which does not actually sustain for a long time. And the right one is the strength of our South Asian cities and also how we are culturally as human beings in our South Asian cities. So the work we do, we always try to show this image like this is how we work with networks and with a very strong bond. So yeah, so when we start to work, we can walk a longer path, you know. So yeah, and we can have lots of more ideas from people, and when people actually take the responsibility on their shoulder and they actually proactively work on that, and so lots of informal urban spaces can be regenerated because we actually inherit the cultural thing in ourselves. So we really need to go to people as professional and we need to work in their system, in their process and facilitate. Yeah. So thank you. This is what I wanted to share with you.
Thank you so much, Suhailey. It was a beautiful presentation. It was great to see women occupying the physical, like public space. And I agree, like it's really important for communities to come together because when they create spaces like the way you guys involved community members, I think they really own it, they take care of it, and it's really important to engage with the community itself. Thank you. It was a very beautiful presentation. Now, next we have Zahra Hirji on the panel. I'll introduce her. Zahra is a landscape designer with a background in architecture and a focus on socially and environmentally responsive design. She graduated with a master's in landscape architecture from the University of British Columbia in 2024. She previously worked at the Al Khan University Hospital, where she developed a growing interest in the relationship between natural and built environments. During her master's, her academic focus included the impact of sea level rise, climate appropriate planting practices rooted in indigenous knowledge, and the role of public spaces in supporting marginalized communities. This was examined in her thesis, where her design explored how underutilized parks in Karachi can be reimagined to give women of different generations agency in the urban landscape. Since graduation, Zara has continued to advocate for public and communal placemaking, collaborating with Marvi Mazhar on the article The Unwalkable City of Karachi, highlighting the lack of public infrastructure. She is currently working as a curator for the Mangrove Biodiversity Park in Korangi. Her work bridges the environmental and the social, rooted in respect for the place and the people. Thank you, Zara, for being here today. Over to you.
Thank you for that introduction. Okay, so I'm going to start by this quote by Jane Jacobs. Think of a city and what comes to mind? Its streets. If a city's streets look interesting, the city looks interesting. If they look dull, the city looks dull. Jacobs encapsulates how the character of a city's streets can mirror the overall identity of the city itself. If the streets are vibrant and lively, they suggest a community rich in culture and interaction. How do our spaces and their erosion impact our perception of a city's vibrancy? So Pakistan's footpaths are more than just spaces for walking. They are the arteries of urban life and reflect the country's social fabric. They are brimming with commuters, hawkers, and food carts. As a result, the footpaths become marketplaces, social hubs, and shelters for the homeless. However, despite their central role in urban life, walkable footpaths are scarcely regarded as crucial components of the urban landscape. Karachi's footpaths transform throughout the day, from quiet early mornings with street sweepers and chai stalls to chaotic mid mornings and afternoons crowded with students, workers, fruit vendors, hawkers, and broken infrastructure pushing pedestrians onto roads. In upscale areas like DHA, footpaths have disappeared entirely. Where they do exist, they are mostly used by domestic workers. In the evening time, traffic increases and many women rush to leave home before it gets dark, as the streets are not well lit and security becomes an issue. Footpaths remain lively on food streets and in commercial areas. Bazaars reel in the products that they had been displayed on the footpath, making space for the chai dhabas to spread out their chairs for late night baithaks. As midnight passes, homeless individuals lay out their chadars and seek refuge on the footpaths. Traditionally, cities of walkers are now experiencing exponentially increase in motorization. This was also reiterated in the first session with Amara Maqsood. Limiting the attention given to pedestrian and public transport facilities has led to many urban infrastructural issues where urban developers have stopped accommodating pedestrian accessibility. Signal-free corridors and multi-level flyovers have also resulted in a higher number of high-speed traffic accidents and injuries to pedestrians. Crosswalks are non-existent, and the lack of traffic signals mean overhead pedestrian bridges have to be built. Only 3 of the 164 pedestrian bridges in Karachi are built with ramps for wheelchairs. As someone who is physically challenged, it can take half an hour just to travel across the bridge without accessibility features. These pedestrian bridges, if covered with billboards, can create a tunnel, fostering an unsafe environment, especially for women in the night. Sorry, Empress Market was not Empress Market had evolved into a vibrant hub, but under the anti-encroachment drive, demolished over 1,000 shops and resulted in the loss of over 200,000 jobs and threatened the multi-class social and cultural fabric of Southern. Empress Market was not just a marketplace, it was a dynamic organism integral to Karachi's urban life. Instead of shrinking public spaces, urban planners should consider how these areas can serve as vibrant ecosystems in their own right, fostering community and culture rather than stifling them. When it comes to design and thinking of urban interventions in public spaces, we have so much historical referencing to consider and learn from in Karachi. The concept of a thalla, fixed outdoor platform, was a very common feature in Karachi's old town streets, where these platforms were used in neighborhoods as a place for congregation during Karachi's breezy evenings. This kind of public feature was not forced. It was always part of the building design and a way to include the outside with the inside. The 11-foot wide footpaths in Karadar, which feature curbstone ramps, these paths reflect Karachi's early urban planning practices and demonstrate a rare consideration for accessibility in the city. Karadar has mid-rise housing where even at ground plus 3, the highest floor has a relationship with the street, whether it is just loitering on the footpath. So this is my quote by Jean Jacobs. This is footpaths as third spaces and what a day in the footpath looks like. So you have fruit vendors, you have the streets where people, they cut their hair, their baithaks, chai dhabas, the disappearance. Sorry, you can see this now, right? Disappearance of third spaces.
Yes.
Okay, so disappearance of third spaces. So talking about lack of disability on the pedestrian walkways and how footpaths have now been broken. They don't exist, and the evacuation of hawkers from Empress Market. And below down here, you can see footpaths in new developments and how they just don't exist anymore. As I was talking about learning from Carter's footpaths. So over here you have the thala, and then you have tokris and three-story mid-rise housing, where even at ground plus 3, the highest floor has a relationship with the street. So whether it was just loitering on the footpath, levering down a tokri from the balcony down to the storefront, or just expanding out onto the footpath, all coexist with a clear passage of travel. The footpath becomes more humanistic. In other words, there is a strong interest or concern for human welfare, values, and dignity, thus providing ample space for multiple uses while ensuring accessibility for all. So 95% of women from low-income backgrounds in Pakistan rely on non-motorized trips for their daily mobility, hence relying on public transport or foot for their travel. In an article, Hira Shoaib and Zahra Imran discuss how the interaction and connection one has with their public space have visible effects on women's empowerment, identity, safety, and access to public spaces. Additionally, women's patterns on mobility are also influenced by activities which are necessary, optional, and social. However, traditional gender roles have influenced and reduced women's activities, specifically in low-income backgrounds, to necessity, determining their purpose of travel and timing, reinforcing gender inequality. Many Hindu vendors that would sell dry fruit lost their livelihood after the Empress Market evictions. Express Tribune wrote a story on these evictions, on the harassment they faced daily by police officers from Southern. Bani, one of the women hawkers that was evicted, stated, "We request the government to restore our livelihoods. We just sell dry fruits on the streets. We don't occupy public property. We've no other source of livelihood to feed our children. We are working women supporting our families. Where will we go now?" So how can we give agency to our women so that they have rights to our public spaces? For a woman to have agency in a space, she must feel like she has the right to the city. And how is that possible? There is reappropriation, be it jobs, services, schools, places to sit, necessary, optional, and social activities, and they must feel secure in their space. How can women feel secure in a space? So landmarks and signages. These landmarks could be a specific paving pattern or canopy type. They can have lighting. They can have eyes on the street. So the question now is, whose eyes are on the street? So it's important to have more women's eyes on the streets or traveling with other women. Proximity to busy areas, feeling like one's space is sacred, and safe adjoining areas. So how can third spaces look if we want more women out in public? So the following narration is how I envision the future of South Asian cities can be, where multi-generational women have agency in their public spaces. The narration is about Anam, a girl going to school, Shamim, a working class woman, and an older grandmother. These spaces are not programmed, but are instead places in which the women themselves have freedom to steward and design themselves. Every afternoon, after school is over, Anam and her girlfriends gather outside school grounds. Power in numbers, her mother always reminded her. Together, they will go to the neighborhood park while they wait to get picked up. The new walkway, designed keeping women in mind, was recently built, and the women and the girls proudly walk together on it. The paving pattern and light shades reminds Anam's friend of her quilt at home. The quilt uses geometric patchwork made by women in villages to create quilts called rali, derived from the word ralana, meaning to mix or connect. She skips every time a dark red concrete tile appears on the path, pretending it's hot like lava. Meanwhile, as Anam passes the street, vendors taking shade under the lignum trees, she reminds herself to come back here with her mom to buy the embroidered kurta on display. The girls go to the library first to finish their homework, From 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., the Banyan Grove is used by women teaching workshops. Anam spots her old house help, Shamim, harvesting indigo from the straw garden beds near the workshop. Today, the workshop is teaching how to naturally dye your own fabrics. Next week, Shamim will learn how to embroider on top of their dyed fabrics. And the week after, they're learning business development skills to start their own business. Shamim's daughter is occupied counting how many wooden stumps she can jump on. After the workshops, the grove opens up for the girls as they bring their library books out and read under the singing of the mena birds. The word banyan comes from banya, or Hindu merchants, since traders used to set up their stalls in the shadow of these trees and sell their products. They talk about growing old along with these banyan trees and bringing their own granddaughters to the grove to tell stories of their past under the banyan roots. In the late afternoon, Anam goes across the street to another park, swinging the tree. His cheerleader loves watching her granddaughter being able to practice. Sorry, you can hear me?
Yes, you're lagging a little bit, but yeah, we can hear you.
Meanwhile, Shamim and her, as she waits for her granddaughter's practice to be over, she tends to the shared vegetable garden that the ladies in the neighborhood have planted. She taught her granddaughter to plant okra in the garden beds here a few months ago. Shamim and her daughter head home, walking the new path all the way to the bus stop at the south. While waiting, she buys some vegetables from the pop-up market behind. The vendors are wrapping up for the day and the poles are coming down. Tomorrow, they'll be up again. Her daughter waits at the bus stop, gazing up at all the different patterns made to create this flower structure. Her mother is making a similar blanket for her with her late grandmother's kurtas. After practice, luckily, Yasmin Lari's outdoor chulas were built in the outdoor courtyard near their house. As Anam and her grandmother prepped for the food together, other neighbors lamenting about the gas load shed, cook and eat together under the badam tree courtyard. So I hope that got your mind thinking of all the ways we could look at our public spaces and how women can occupy them. Specifically, when talking about footpaths, they should have a frontage zone, a pedestrian zone, and a service zone, depending on whether they are commercial or residential. So in the first image over here, you can see that there's in the residential zone. The service zone can have plants, trees, bench, ramps. In the commercial zone, the areas are more spaced out. The frontage zone increases and service zone also increases to include bus stops, plants, benches, ramps. This can be seen in the image in the center, where even if hawkers exist, there is still a clear zone of travel. Another example is Charles Correa's take on how footpaths can be separated from the road by a platform that is used by vendors during the day outside. Our public spaces, be it parks or footpaths, need to shift from the colonial narrative of manicured lawns, stone pergolas, and non-native trees should not be the characteristics. They do not provide us with shade, nor are they sustainable to maintain. And these photos that you see here are actually 5 different parks in Clifton, all looking exactly the same. And these 2 images at the bottom show a neem tree that has been cut down for no reason in a park that was being treated as a garbage dump. So we owe it to our country to be environmentally and socially responsible when designing our public spaces. And that starts with having more diversity in our conversations in urban planning. So it's like Suhailey mentioned, that it's very important to sort of bring the public into these conversations on how to design and what they want for the city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zara. It was a really insightful presentation, and the story of Anam that you were narrating, I hope that actually comes true in the future. And yeah, it was a really beautiful presentation. Moving on, now we have Mariam Naveed on the panel. I will introduce Mariam, and then we can. Then Mariam is gonna share her screen, and then yeah. So, Mariam is an urban planner and researcher based in Islamabad. She holds a master's in urban placemaking and management from Pratt Institute, New York, where she studied as a Fulbright scholar. She leads the sustainability lab at Atom Camp and working at the intersection of data, climate change, and cities. She works closely with city governments to design people centered urban interventions. Her research interests include active mobility, inclusive public spaces, community participation in urban decision making, and climate responsive planning. Thank you so much for being here with us, Mariam. Over to you.
Thank you, Sana. Thank you for the kind introduction. And thank you to Pakistan Chowk Community Centre. It's amazing to be presenting some of my work at a platform that I've learned from a lot during the years of my study as well and of my early practice. So I'll start and I have amazing feedback and just amazing thoughts from what Zahra and Suhailey shared. And I think the theme today is very much like it's close to a lot of people's heart because this is exactly where our cities lack and what all of us as young people crave for in our cities. So I'll just start with a little bit of what I'll be sharing. My soft spot in urban planning and in urban studies is public spaces, specifically parks, and informal public spaces. I've studied placemaking, which uses the idea of tactical urbanism, community engagement, design, governance, and management of spaces. And we'll be seeing these ideas reflected throughout a case study that I'll be presenting. So starting with a little bit about my work that I've been doing as an urban planner, I've been engaged with the uh, City Development Authority, Capital Development Authority, CDA, which is the Development Authority for Islamabad, and Rawalpindi Development Authority. And I've worked with both of these in different capacities in specific work around active mobility. So I worked on developing a plan for Islamabad for citywide cycling infrastructure, and with Rawalpindi, I've worked on developing a plan and sort of a pilot intervention for two-wheeler lanes. And both of these have these interventions and the research and work around these interventions has come from a place of understanding public space and wanting to create more public space. Along with this, I also hold like regular community sessions, speaking sessions, discussion circles with the local communities, and my methodologies for studying public spaces and for studying modes of transportation and public life in cities are usually through observation, through talking to people, and just through observation mapping, like mapping people's behaviors. So starting with what has been on my mind recently, there's this public space close to where I live in Islamabad. I live a little on the peripheries, so it's not the main sectors. It's like 20 kilometers further from what characterizes as Islamabad, proper Islamabad. And this is a public space that recently caught my attention while I was driving past it. I noticed it, and like this was one of the most unexpected things I had seen next to a highway. So there's a major highway that runs through Islamabad called the Islamabad Expressway. And right off, if you can see my cursor, so the Islamabad Expressway is like a 6-lane wide road, heavy traffic, heavy truck traffic, motorbikes, cars throughout the day, especially during like the rush hours of the morning and evening. And exiting right from this expressway, from the highway, is this sort of an exit ramp that goes into an underpass, and that underpass takes you to a private residential society, private housing society. So you see, in this leftover land between a highway, an exit ramp, and an underpass, there's this leftover space that's a green lawn. It has some hedges, it has some fencing around it, but very light, like green organic fencing around it. But essentially, it's in transportation planning, this term is called a cloverleaf island. So this is basically area that cannot be zoned for any sort of buildings or any sort of other uses. So it's just like a green belt or a leftover land. Not a natural space for a park, not a place where you would expect a park to be. But it's got the attention of, including myself, it's got the attention of so many people, and people like to come here in this space and enjoy in the evenings. Even though it's not technically a park, it does not have an official name. It's referred to as the Gulberg Flyover Park, Gulberg Greens Park, or just as the Green Belt sometimes, or some people were not sure what to call it when I talked to them. So it does not have an official name. There's no signage, there's no benches or, street lights or walking paths or any sort of playground equipment, all of the things that signify a park, a conventional park. None of that exists here. But if you ask people, they would call it a park because that's what it has become to a lot of them. Um, what got me more curious, and I've been studying it, I've been researching, going to this park, talking to people, and observing this space for quite a while now. And what got me really curious is that this space has become a park because of what is glaringly missing in the surrounding housing societies, in the surrounding areas where people live. So this park is situated somewhere around here, right at the border of Rawalpindi and Islamabad. This is a map of Rawalpindi. Islamabad lies somewhere here, and then all of this part, which is not shown on the map, but this part is called sort of rural Islamabad. So this intersection or this park lies right around here. And it's like, I feel like the people who come here are a closer demographic than what we would call, um, you know, they're closer to Rawalpindi than they are to Islamabad. So I thought it was a, it was a very telling analysis that, we did this analysis at the sustainability lab where we studied what is the ratio of public space, what is the ratio of green space to built up area. And there is a suggested number for this. UN Habitat suggests that the ratio of public space to built up area in a city should be around 15%, whereas the public space that we have in Rawalpindi, that is like an alarming 4.6%. That's way too low. If you analyze that from a per capita point of view, UN Habitat suggested per square meter of public space per person is 9 square meter, whereas the amount of square meter public space that a citizen in Rawalpindi gets is 3.8 square meter. So this is really revealing of why people are flocking to this unexpected, why people are coming to um, this park or this public space that exists in the middle of a highway, because there are no public spaces in all of these housing societies that have developed as the city expanded. And ironically, most of these housing societies, their names suggest things like, Gulberg Greens or gardens. So they have a suggestion towards livability, they have a suggestion towards public space and public good. But when you live in these spaces, when you observe these housing societies, you see that they are so overly commercialized. Every plot is valued for the turnout that it can give for the number of houses that can be built. There are a few like very honorary sort of green spaces left here and there. You would see that they would be in terrible condition, or they would be locked up, or nothing to suggest that, you know, it's a park and you can come here. So this lack of green public space, this lack of parks is what is um, what is bringing people to this place that is not technically a natural spot for a park. Um, I've been like, as I mentioned earlier, that informal public spaces and tactical urbanism and places that are not, you know, conventionally what they need to be is a soft spot for me in urban studies. So I've been studying this park, and I've used like some methodologies that have helped me characterize what's working and what's not working in this space. Like I was really curious that um, despite having to cross a highway, despite having to, you know, travel like 10-15 minutes from their houses, why are people still coming here? So I use the project for public spaces has this tool called the place wheel. And I use this to study really what's good about this place and what are things that are actually present. It's let's just go around the wheel. It's fun, it's active, it's vital, it's special in a way that it's free and open to the public. There's no ticket, there's no fencing or nothing that's suggesting that not everyone can enter. It's indigenous in its ways that it's very unprescriptive of what you can do in this space. It's an open public lawn where you can either sit and have a picnic, you can bring in friends and family, you could be playing with a ball, you could be playing badminton. So it's large enough to sustain or to carry out, to have, contain all of these different uses. And still people get to have their own smaller spaces in the park. Um, Following along on the wheel, it's safe and clean because there is a management attached to it. I feel like the Gulberg Greens, the housing society manages it. It suggests that from the way it looks, the lawns are manicured, the lawns are watered. There is a light source, not very impressive, but there is a light source. And there's also a guardian appointed by Gulberg Greens to look after the space during active hours. It's definitely sittable. The grass is very nice to sit on. It's charming and attractive. Not I won't call it historic. Access and linkage is where it really falls short. Falls short. I would say it's accessible in the way that it's open and free, but just the act of driving up to the park, either on a motorbike. I've seen people come up here on a rickshaw, and then crossing the road. There's no assigned parking for all of the people who are coming here. There's no assigned footpath or any sort of pedestrian infrastructure. So all of that, the access and linkage part is where it's missing. It's highly sociable. I feel like people run into each other all the time here, and they run into neighbors all the time here. So just some photos to capture the vitality of the space. This is the highlight activity that happens at the park every day. There's a water tanker that comes that like takes the loop around the exit ramp every day to water the lawn, and you see that all the kids they follow it all the way, and it's like a relief in the heat. It's like rain. So just turning a regular maintenance activity into something that brings joy and facilitates public life. I love to see that. Then I saw that a lot of the kids love sitting on the hills or rolling down the hills. So again, natural landscape that becomes a play feature. The park sort of lies in a depression, so that diffuses the noise of the highway that's constantly running like crazy. Um, there's light vendor activity, just enough to add like vitality to the space, but like there's just ice cream, a soda wala, a challi wala, and just some light vendor activity for added activities, but it's not overcrowded with, commercial spaces like roll paratha, or, it's not overcrowded, it's not prescriptive in the way you don't necessarily have to come and eat out here, but it's a suggestion lightly on the peripheries of the park. Then I saw that there's this vendor who rents out footballs. There's a vendor who rents out these like motor run cars. So people have created their own activities in the space, and this is really a takeaway as a person who designs and programs spaces. This is really a takeaway for me that you don't always have to prescribe public spaces and parks with swings or benches or vendor activity or food. Sometimes just giving people a free canvas, an open canvas, is enough to encourage them, and just an encouraging space to encourage them to come up with their own activities. But really, my main thesis with this space is that it's an absurd reality of our cities. It's an absurd state for us. People have to come out, like we're in the age of 15-minute cities where it's suggested that you should have a park, a school, a health facility, a public space, all of these things within a 15-minute radius of where you live. We're in that era, and people have to come out on find means of transportation, then come out of their houses, and then have to like deal with all this traffic, moving traffic, just to, like, for what? Just to access something as basic as public space? Why can't we provide this within these residential societies? And these residential societies are really like the prime place to practice the 15-minute cities. They're being built newly. They're being added to the city. They're being built with a purpose. They know how many houses or how many people, what's the density of the people that will be living there. So it's the perfect place for them to practice, public spaces, bring public spaces to people. This is a photo that like it's a very real reality of this park, of this space. A lucky capture for me, but I love this photo. Like, it's an alarming photo for me, because just look at how a family, or how a young family, how young children have to run through high speed traffic, through motorbikes, and maneuver their way to get to a public space. So as much as I love this public space, it is an alarming thing for me to see that kids have to really put their lives in danger, or really go out of their way to access a public space in the evening. And that really speaks to the topic of the session today: loss and erosion of communal spaces. So access is a serious issue. I've been studying it very deeply, and like I've been studying where people cross, what are the main hurdles, and like I feel like this place is doing so well, and it is an example of what tactical urbanism looks like in our cities, and this needs to be preserved, this needs to be studied and preserved as a public space. So I've been studying through ways that I know how to study public spaces. These are some of my core studies when it comes to public spaces. I use How to Study Public Life by Jan Gell to see how to observe things and how to turn those into actionable items, or sort of actionable recommendations for the city. And I've been thinking about what how having a pedestrian walkway, how slowing down signs, how using like stop signage and slow down signage, how all of these things can make this particular public space safer and more accessible, and less of an absurdity for us as planners and as people who love public spaces. But really, I feel like this is not so uncommon, or this is not a foreign concept to us here in Pakistan. we have we are the people who have public space right out of our homes, like right on our streets, turning like having from street cricket and like corner plot footballs, we are really not the kind of people who need designated space for public space. Um, we can turn anything into a public space. We heard Sana talk about how the rooftops, how chat and verandas and mohalla spaces are created organically and through tactical urbanism. But just now, because of this fetish with highways and fast access vehicles, and just this craze for having quick access to the downtown from the suburb, all of this has sort of made our roads, all of this has made our streets into roads. Essentially, my personal point of view with public space is that the basic unit of the city, the street, is the public space. You should not have to go to a particular park or a particular area or a designated or a specially designed area. I mean, those are good to have, but what's really important is to turn our streets into public spaces. And I've been trying to do that through the projects that I mentioned earlier as well about active mobility, and through these kind of research studies, small research areas that catch my eye. So yeah, I'll end here and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariam. It was a very eye-opening presentation for us. I think you're right. Like, we don't really need a specific place. People organically occupy, activate a space, and, make it a public space. But I think people deserve, a proper public space, and we don't really need, proper, like vendors and, proper spaces. I think it's just it's also a way of like community engagement. The way you're talking about the Gulberg flyover, I think that's another way of community engagement and to activate the space. So with that, we are opening the floor for question and answers. If you have any question for any of the speakers, please mention it in the chat box, and please mention the speaker that you have the question for. Until then, we have a few questions from our team. The first one is for Suhailey. Co-creation and participatory design lie at the core of your practice. In the case of fragmented community, alienated from one another, how do you build trust in communities where public spaces where public space has already been lost, fenced, or politicized?
Thank you. I think the way we work is, first of all, we build relationships and trust. So, and I also mentioned like we work as with the community networks. So whenever we try to work in any place, be it developing urban spaces or developing any habitat, we actually have networks of different communities, and we often actually sit with each other and try to listen. And I don't say it's a very uh, always easy. There are lots of fights, lots of disagreements, also agreements. But that's how uh, somehow you come to a consensus, and you can actually ask the right question when you have a long time and you don't have a rush to do a project. You don't have so much pressure on the budget or the timeline. So you have a relaxed time, and also can have invest a lot of time in building the relationship with each other. And in many of the places, I can give you one example from Junaida. So two communities were separated from each other with a wall, and it's near the river Ghat, I have been showing you. And then when the citizens they planned the big river Ghat, river steps, so and this became a wonderful opportunity to connect two communities. And previously they had fights with each other. They built a wall, and and then they decided, no, we can do it for a bigger good. A lot of people can come, and and it's not about breaking a wall, it's also about ensuring safety, because they could actually understand, like, if they're breaking the wall, this is not the dead end, so people will be passing by, so lots of safety things are coming along with that. So I think the first thing, whatever we do, is to have a dialogue and to listen from each other, to understand, to have the empathy. These are the things I think we can first work on to this, and then the other thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. There's actually another question for you.
Yeah.
Do you see gender equity naturally emerging through participatory processes in communal space making, or does it need to be intentionally structured into these engagements?
Interesting question. So sometimes we play like the politicians, we say this is a women group. So even for the professionals, we we tell the male members maybe you shouldn't be here. So we choose the place intentionally. Suppose uh, we do the focus group discussion in a courtyard, and where the men from the outsider, they will not be allowed, and we intentionally choose the timing where female are mostly free and men are not there. So it's very important that we design all these things, elements, little by little, to have that equity, because in South Asian region I don't think there is like gender equity when we are talking all together. The men become the powerful. It's not only about women, it's also about children. We don't think they are important in the decision making or in the design process, so we do it separately arranged with age and gender. So, and it's very helpful then if there is all female here, so they are more free to talk and share, so you have to design it.
Thank you so much, Suhailey. The next question is for Zahra Hirji. Um, how do you see design to how would you use design to make a neglected public park feel safe and inviting for women of all ages?
So I sort of answered that through how women can get, have agency in the public space. So whether it's, walking together, whether it's lighting, landmarks, signages, proximity, that would all sort of make it more inclusive for women to enter and be a part of a public park. I think that would all, yeah.
Thank you so much. There's another question for you. As a curator of the Mangrove Biodiversity Park, you balance ecology with social use. How could lessons from that project be adapted for inner city plazas?
Um, so okay, so through ecology, like so I think in one of my visuals I had shown this the partition between a footpath and the road, and then the median in between, and sort of that median should have climate appropriate planting, for example grasses or lignum trees, and sort of trying to design for a specific place. So for example, at the mangrove park, it's a coastal environment, and to plant something that requires a lot of sweet water doesn't really make sense. You have to plant according to that environment. It has to have accommodate for saline environments, and also it shouldn't be invasive. So something that requires less water that works in a coastal environment is Cornucopis, but it's not native, it's not indigenous to our region. And so it's important to plant things that are native and indigenous to our space, and so that similar concept can go for plazas as well.
Thank you so much. Mariam, the next question is for you. Much of the remaining public space in cities today is highly commercialized or securitized. How do we push back against this model to design inclusive spaces that are neither public nor profit driven?
I think that's exactly spot on. And what I love about this particular public space is that there's a McDonald's right like on the Cloverleaf Island that's on the other side of a highway. There's a McDonald's and an Imtiaz and a grocery store and whatnot. But this part of and that part of the Cloverleaf that's filled up with car parking, and you run into so much like traffic, and you have to like you really don't want to be there, but you can't not be there as well because of you have to really cross it. And on the other side you see this public space where you see people, children, women, couples hanging out, and it's such a sight for sore eyes when you just drive past this part of the intersection. I feel like that there's like one way to really reclaim public spaces, in my opinion, in my like experience, and I've seen a lot of people do it. I've seen Shaheen auntie and Marvi do it in a lot of ways, is just by the kind of conversation, just by the kind of gatherings and programming you bring to the space. And so there may be, a central park somewhere in Islamabad, which is highly commercialized, there's restaurants and whatnot there, but whatever green space that you have, whatever public space that you have, the conversations that you have there, the programming that you bring to the space, the meaning that you bring to the space, I think that's a way, as individuals we can push back against this high commercialization and privatization of space. I feel like at a city level, at an institutional level, it's a much longer battle that needs a lot more people like all of us, I feel like, to push back in some form or another.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Now we're moving on to audience questions. So there are a few questions that were in the chat box, and Suhaili answered two of them. But if you want, Suhaili, you can expand it on them more. I will just read them out. Was the community engaged in the construction of the space as well? That is from Afshin Javed. And then another question is from Samia Sarfaraz. The locals are also responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the area. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just add a little bit. Like I talked about two stories of along the river. So one was a, big public urban space, and another was a communal urban space. So the big urban space, this is taken care by the municipality, and municipality was also a active part of this action in the co-creation process. So that's what happened in the co-creation process. Everyone takes the responsibility of whatever skills they have. So the municipality, they sourced the fund, they built it, and they maintained it. And so but it was built by the local mason and the local contractor. And for the communal part, it's maintained by the women. So yeah, it's a two different scale, and it is maintained differently. And the women, they could actually take care of the women savings group. They could take care, supervise the work, and also take care of the like procuring the I think the bricks and the cement and etc. Yeah, they could verify in different shops and see the quality, and then they do it. Yeah, and they also took the help of the mason as well to build it, and they also contributed half of the fund for the communal ghat, because they have a saving group, and they negotiated with the mayor like this. We have the plan design, we also have the cost estimation, and we also have a fund. So we are just lacking of half of the fund. So can you help us? So this is how actually the community negotiate with government, and then they built it together. Yeah. So I hope this answers your question.
Thank you so much. If anyone has a question, they can also like open their mic and like raise their hand, open their mic and speak to the speakers, ask the question. And we now have another question that is from Zahra. Did you find that the public was interested in coming themselves, or did you have to motivate them to come to the focus group in some way?
Yeah, it was also interesting. Yeah, because every time when we say participation or co-creation, I think I like to say use the word co-creation, because participation is like you just participate, and co-creation is you take responsibility as well, and you also be the proactive, do the proactive role, play the proactive role in it. So co-creation is a better word choice to me. And yes, sometimes people were not interested, they didn't come, and those who were interested, they came. And because it's I mentioned it's a smaller town, so everyone have a good relationship, So our office at that time was almost on the city center, and at that time, I remember we always kept our office door open, and we had a beautiful garden. So everyone would come and have like, hi, hello, what you are doing, and are you growing vegetables? And we used to grow vegetable then. So that's how conversation starts. That's the power of, I think, the bond of smaller town. And I also mentioned, I was writing like, when the Western world is actually struggling, how they can do collective things. We really inherit this. We have this quality in our culture, in South Asian cities, because government didn't provide anything. Communities actually uh, get together. They did collective things together. So this is our strength. I think being an architect in this region, I think we should focus on that. What strength we have. Yeah, and we should also include this kind of education in our academia, which we are really lacking right now, because we really learn the westernized architecture and the other things. So it's not for our context. So we need to contextualize that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. The next question is for Mariam. Yes, Zara.
Sorry. So Haley, did you also ever visit the Shanti Khanas that were designed by the Rohingya refugees in
Yes,
Bangladesh as well? You did.
yes,
I
yes,
think
yes.
that's
And and the architect, she was part of our team as well. So
mm,
yeah, we are very close friends.
okay. Yeah, I think that's a great project as well for anyone that is interested in sort of, looking at community engagement and how the community co-creates
Yes.
a space.
Yeah. And later on, they actually built a lot of other structures in that area in the similar process. So architect Rizvi Hassan and also architect Patni, both of them are very close to us, and they did wonderful job. I think like a wonderful job. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now we have a question for Mariam from Zara. How do you see the future of this open space going, staying the same, privatization, or increasing the safety of accessibility of the space?
Yeah, I think I'll answer this. And there's a question by Naveed Akhtar as well. So I'll answer them both together, because I think they speak to each other. And also my own interest in this space came from like just imagining that what would happen if there was ever an accident over here. The public space is what they're going to shut down, what Gulberg Green is going to shut down. Nobody's going to do anything to stop or slow down the cars. They're just going to shut down or like stop people from gathering here, and that is going to be their default response. Whereas this is a place that has started holding meaning for people, for a lot of people. So that is why I want to study it. I want to see what are like small interventions. As sad and as absurd as this is, I mentioned that before as well. I want to see like what are small things that can maybe suggested to the either, I'm not sure if it's managed completely by the private housing society, or if CDS still has a say in like managing the road. But really suggesting small pilot interventions that can be done, that can be pilot tested and checked if they are helping slow down traffic, if they are helping facilitate pedestrian movement and just people crossing the road. So even to Naveed's point about what can we do to push governments towards thinking about thinking about public spaces, bringing more green spaces. Sadly, I feel like there's no business case for green spaces and public spaces, and that is why they get left out in a lot of urban planning in places like in housing societies where every plot of land counts. They would either turn that into a housing, like a house or a plot or a commercial lot, then give it up for public space. And that is where the lack of institutional support and regulations from governments come in. Having set minimums for the amount of public space that housing societies should provide for. When you're outsourcing land to a private housing society, you should ensure that this amount of green space or public space is allocated and it's built in that private housing society. But like my own sort of experience with what can be done to push governments towards this is just having this conversation, advocating for it as much as possible, and pushing through small pilot interventions. I'm sorry, my approach to it is more methodological than like inspirational, but really pushing for pilot interventions. All the work, like the work on active mobility that I was able to get done, that has been purely through advocacy that I've been doing, that advocates in the city have been doing before me, and through small pilot interventions. That's what you can convince governments on, development authorities on, that let's test this small thing. It's a trendy thing, 15-minute city, bring them examples from India, from China. Governments and development authorities love to see like these flashy examples. Oh, we want to have roads like China and India, and maybe not India, but like these flashy cities, and that becomes a incentive for trying out small pilot interventions. So that's my plan with this public space as well, just to study behavior, just to map out behavior, and then suggest some really small interventions, low cost. We used to call them in placemaking, we call them lighter, quicker, cheaper interventions. Things that require low maintenance, things that require very little cost to set up, and that can sort of give a PR incentive to the people who are managing the space. Um, I don't understand Samya's question. If you could please elaborate that. Or I don't know if we have time for any more questions.
Thank you so much, Mariam. We have a little time, so if anyone wants to ask the speakers questions, they can raise their hand and open their mic and speak. So if anyone has questions, please raise your hands. Otherwise, then we'll move on to conclusions. Okay, so thank you for everyone for asking such thoughtful questions, and a very special thanks to our speakers for answering them in such an insightful way. Now, I will request my co-curator Samil to please conclude this very successful session. Over to you, Samil.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been incredible to reflect upon different practices that have the power to transform our urban spaces, from Suhailey's work with communities to ensure participatory design, to Zahra's research on footpaths and how to reimagine them through a gendered lens, to Marium's study on urban placemaking and informal practices. All these conversations have allowed us to open our lens and our observation of the cities around us and how they are functioning and how they can function better in the future. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a wonderful time with you all. And we also have a session on Wednesday, and it is about climate change and ecology and how that we can integrate it better with our world. So please join us for that session as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.